Ever think about how some of the oldest rules in the Bible, like those about blood in Leviticus, could actually still kind of shape how we see things today? Like life, death, even the food we eat.
Interesting.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to be looking at Leviticus 17 and how this part of the Hebrew Bible, it kind of gives us a look into ancient Israelite society. Some pretty fascinating stuff, really.
Yeah, what gets me about this chapter is that it's more than just rules, you know? It's like looking into how they saw the world, like the sacred and the everyday stuff, and how people and the divine kind of balanced each other out.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. Leviticus 17, it lays down some very specific stuff about animal sacrifice, especially when it comes to blood. And right away, one thing that pops out is this whole thing about having all the worship in one place. All the sacrifices have to be done at the entrance of the meeting tent, given to a priest. Why do you think they did that?
Probably a way to make sure everyone was on the same page, you know?
Yeah.
Keep the religious authority strong. And you gotta figure, back then, getting cut off from your community, that was a huge deal. No safety net, no trading, maybe even family ties cut. So having everyone worship in the same way, same place, it was a strong way to keep folks from going off and doing their own thing.
Yeah, I can see that. Makes you wonder how everyday life was for the Israelites with this change, right? Was there pushback, or did they see it as a way to bring everyone together when things were changing?
Yeah, that is something to think about, the whole social side of it. And this idea of control, of order, it kind of goes with another big part of Leviticus 17.
Yeah.
They absolutely forbid eating blood. No way, no how.
That's right. And it wasn't just for the Israelites either. Anyone living with them, same rules. They were very clear. The life of every creature, it's in the blood. It almost feels like, a really early health rule in a way. What do you think?
Oh, for sure. There's a lot of back and forth about whether these rules were purely symbolic or if they knew something about hygiene and disease way back then. But no matter what, not eating blood, it was a big part of staying pure for both, their spirit and maybe even physically.
And they really, really meant it. Even when they hunted wild animals, they had to drain the blood and cover it with dirt. It's like this belief was in every single part of how they lived in the world.
Exactly. Imagine trying to follow that now. Could you do it? No blood sausage, no rare steaks. A different world, huh?
This idea of blood being holy, like it's life itself, it brings us to another fascinating thing. Atonement. We see this idea of sprinkling blood on the altar to clean away sin, to be okay with God again.
Yeah, and this whole concept of sacrificing blood to make things right, it really speaks to something deep in us, I think. We need to fix the things we mess up, you know? It suggests that when we sin, we get separated from the divine, and offering blood, it was like building a bridge back.
It's something you see in other places too, not just with the ancient Israelites, right?
Yeah.
This idea of sacrifice, even if it's not literally blood, it kind of echoes through different religions, different cultures, even today.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about how we talk. Blood, sweat, and tears, or giving your blood for a cause. It still feels like blood means serious commitment, a big sacrifice.
Okay, so let's change gears a little. Leviticus 17, it also has some interesting rules about what to do with dead animals. Like, if an animal died naturally or was killed by a wild animal, anyone who touched it had to wash their clothes, bathe, and they were considered unclean for a while.
Right, and that shows just how much they cared about ritual purity. Keeping things separate, sacred from everyday stuff, clean from unclean.
It's interesting to compare those old ideas about purity with how we do things today, like our hygiene habits. The reasons might be different, but wanting to stay safe from things that could hurt us, physically or spiritually, we still get that today.
It's almost like, the things that scare us the most, death, disease, they've always pushed us to find ways to deal with them. Rituals, practices, anything to make sense of it all.
So, to sum it all up, we've seen that blood was a huge deal for the ancient Israelites. It was life itself, it was key for making things right with God, and it was totally tied to ideas of being pure and following the rituals.
And it's amazing how those old ideas about blood and sacrifice, they still kind of influence us. Even now, we're still trying to figure out those same questions. Life, death, what does it mean to sacrifice something?
Totally. Makes you think, doesn't it? How much do those echoes of the past still affect us? What other things that we do, what we believe, could be coming from those old ideas about blood and sacrifice? And maybe the biggest question, what do our own rituals, the things we do today, say about what scares us and how we try to find meaning in the world?
Big questions, for sure.
Big questions indeed.